Welcome to the Dacus Report, hosted by Pacific Justice Institute founder and president Brad Dacus. For 25 years, PJI has counseled, represented, and defended people whose religious freedoms, parental rights, or sanctity of life have been obstructed or violated, all free of charge. We leave no one behind and level the playing field for Americans as they are subjected to the tyranny of the powerful. Now, here's Brad Dacus.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here at Brad Dacus Live. Mr. Dacus, the president and founder of Pacific Justice Institute, has me filling in for him today. So I'm happy to be here and be with y'all. And I'm also happy that joining me today will be Joel Miller from our Colorado office. And Joe is a great guy, and we're glad to have him on board here at PJI. We've got a lot to talk about today. As you know, Colorado has become basically as almost as left, if not perhaps more, than California. So we've got some things to talk about in regards to that. So we can bring Joel on. Hi, Joel. How are you, man?
Hey, great, Michael. Great to be on. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you being here, man. Hey, so tell us a little bit. Maybe how'd you find out about Pacific Justice Institute?
I was one of these people that attended law school late in life, and my reasons for doing so were outside of the normal trying to find a career path. It was because I was sort of upset about the way things were happening in our country, and naturally that led me to look for nonprofits to do internships with that were aligned with my beliefs and my legal goals as an attorney once I finished law school, and that brought me to PJI, and they were good enough to give me the chance to be a law school intern. And then after I passed the bar exam last summer, I contacted the Institute again and asked them if they might consider bringing me on as an attorney in Colorado, and I'm very thankful that they did.
Oh, that's great. Great to hear, and great to hear that the Lord answered your mission there and set up a way that you could do what you set out to do. Hey, let's start off. We'll talk about some Colorado bills that are something that we should be taking a look at. And let's start that out with this grants and private right of action issue.
Sure. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, the Supreme Court, in an 8-1, very rare to have the liberal side of the court weigh in. They didn't strike down a Colorado law, but they sent it back down to the 10th Circuit to say, listen, you didn't apply the proper scrutiny when the courts look at whether a law impedes the First Amendment. There are different levels that the court looks at how closely they have to make sure that that law complies with the Constitution. And in Colorado, the district court judge said, the very basic rational basis test is all that needed to be used. If the government has a rational basis for doing the law, that's all we need, and it's good to go. The 10th Circuit affirmed that, and the Supreme Court said, no, you guys missed the boat on this, 8-1. They said it requires that highest level of judicial scrutiny, the strict scrutiny, which requires a compelling government interest. And then the law must be so narrowly tailored that it only applies to the people that it needs to apply to. So it has to be the least restrictive means available if you're diminishing speech. And so they sent it back for Colorado to take a look at it with the lens of that scrutiny. Now there is concern, and this bill, by the way, that they did this for was one that regarded the state regulatory agency for counselors and therapists, talk therapy, saying you could not talk to clients who wanted to. Maybe they wanted to come in and say, you know what, I've been in the LGBTQ situation and I've realized the Lord has called me to align, my personal life with what God had set out for me. Right. And even so, giving that consent, the Colorado law said, no, can't do that. We can take away your license. We can fine you. We can give you probation. So basically, you follow Colorado's orthodoxy, or else your professional career is on the line. So that was the Childs case,
Right.
and that one's coming back down to Colorado. Well, only 3 days after that bill, or after that decision by the Supreme Court, as if to tell the Supreme Court, hey, we're going to do whatever the heck we want in Colorado. The Colorado legislature introduced this bill. It's House Bill 3122, which says there's a private right of action. So what that means is that a private individual can sue.
Before we go there, let me just tap into a couple things that you said, because I think I want our audience to make sure we understand it. So if it is a rational basis review, that means it's very hard for the government to lose on a case that has a rational basis review.
Right.
If it is, on the other hand, a strict scrutiny review, that means it's very hard for the government to win, because it has to be a narrow group of people that are affected, and it has to be some compelling interest. And so,
that's right.
So that's an important change, whether or not their goals, as we're going to talk about here in a minute, will be met by that. That remains to be seen. But I think it's important that the court basically said, no, this is an important speech right, the conversion therapy. And it's interesting. I read the Childs case. It's interesting that the court said basically one of the worst things was that you have only one side can be encouraged.
That's right.
The other side can't be encouraged. Yeah. You can't even mention the other side. That is the side that says, wait, no, I don't want to have these feelings as a patient, and I want to go see my doctor about it. Or the parents say, I want my child to go see a doctor about this. That's important, and the fact that the court is ready to protect therapists in this regard, I think, is a good thing to say. Interesting what you were saying about the notion that Colorado kind of takes it as a badge of honor to go against the Supreme Court, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only explanation how you could introduce this bill only days after that slap down by the Supreme Court. And you're right, Michael, they did, in this bill for the private right of action, which I think we're going to talk more about, they both did the same thing. So a therapist can encourage somebody who's, not sure and is thinking about pursuing this, this alternate, plan, whether it's, homosexuality or transgender issues, that they're allowed to encourage somebody who comes in and is uncertain. Yeah, sure, go ahead, experiment and see what really feels right. They can do that, but they are strictly forbidden from going the other direction. And that's the same in this private right of action law. So it's one viewpoint and a very, it's very controversial. And so what they want to do is get the upper hand on the controversy and say, you know what, Colorado law says you got to think this way, and the Constitution should not allow that to happen. And we're hopeful that the courts will see it the same way.
Yeah, we are. Let's talk about this private right of action. That turns out to be kind of an important issue if you want to challenge a law.
Yeah, that's right. So a citizen can't just file a lawsuit saying, hey, I don't like this law. There has to be something in the law. If it's a federal law and it's something that goes against the Constitution, there's a federal law that allows, it's called Section 1983, that allows a person to file a federal lawsuit saying you violated, this law has violated my constitutional rights. Yeah. So it requires that for you able to have the right to file in court. Well, Colorado wanted to create that right for somebody who had received this, conversion therapy, which goes against the orthodoxy in Colorado. So they want to be able to say that if you received that, from a counselor, and it somehow affected you, and it's very unclear how you prove causation. Like,
Right.
did this therapy that you underwent 25 years ago, did it really turn your life upside down? And how do you prove that? There's very thin requirements to show causation. And
Boy.
so it takes the law that the Supreme Court sent back to Colorado a couple weeks ago and says, all right, well, if the government's not going to do it, we're going to let private individuals and their attorneys do it to enforce the orthodoxy in Colorado. And it's even worse than malpractice. The malpractice has damage caps. There's no damage caps here. There's no statute of limitations. If you have a knee replacement that went bad, there's a certain amount of time where you can say, you know what, it's too late to file a lawsuit on this. This has no such limitation. In fact, this is the incredible thing, Michael, is you could even have the estate of somebody who died, who had this therapy, sue a counselor up to 5 years after their death. So no statute of limitations. In fact, it goes on for 5 years after the person who got this conversion therapy, as they call it, after they died. And so it is unbelievable that it passed so easily through the Colorado House, and it's going to be heard in committee today. In fact, I'll be testifying on behalf of PJI today against the bill
That's great
in the
to
Senate
hear.
Judiciary.
That's great to hear. Folks, if you think about it today, be in prayer for Joel as he testifies before Colorado's legislative body. And, this is really important, folks. So, in order to sue the government, you have to have special permission to do that. The government can say, well, we'll only accept lawsuits for a very narrow set of cases. And the government gets immunity for a lot of things, and that goes back from the early days of the king, where the king would say, no, you can't sue me. But now, but with modernly and under common law, there were certain areas that were allowed to be, the government was allowed to be sued. And here, what they're doing is, as Joel points out, they're opening the floodgates of litigation that can come against these persons who are counselors. And for what? For doing their job and finding out, hey, if someone's troubled, it seems to me that whatever is troubling them ought to be the basis of the counseling.
The House Education Committee would be the first place to start, try to kill it in the committee. If it, of course, makes it out of there, you'd want to contact your House member
Absolutely.
to urge them to vote against it.
Yeah. Well, folks, we are going to take a short break, and we will be back momentarily. So stay with us. We've got a lot more to talk to with Mr. Joel Miller. Thank you so much.
At PJI, we exist to serve everyone in need of counsel, representation, and defense of their religious liberties, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. We don't take cases based on how high profile they are. We are workhorses, not show horses. Keep current on PJI's work on all the legal challenges we face on a daily basis by signing up for our Legal Insider email newsletter at pji.org. Now, back to the Dacus Report.
Hi, welcome back to Brad Dacus Live. I'm Michael Peffer, the attorney for the Southern California area of Pacific Justice Institute, filling in for the president and founder of Pacific Justice, Brad Dacus. We're glad you stayed with us here. We've got a lot to talk about, and these are areas that we, Pacific Justice Institute, involves ourselves in. We have a long track record of preparing opt-out forms, which you can check our website for, and other resources for parents that you can go onto our website, pji.org. And those are things that we can help you out with, but we're happy to receive your calls. We don't charge for our services, so by all means, after this show is over, jump back in to give us a ring, and we'll go from there. Hey, so I'm going to bring back Mr. Miller.
So that could get ugly real quick, and I think we have to be ready to litigate issues like that as they come up as well.
And we are indeed ready here at PGI to litigate these cases, and you know, folks just need to reach out to us. Again, they won't be charged for this, and so you know. In some time here that we have left, let's talk about schools and particularly regarding perceived threats to parents who are dealing with behavior issues with their child.
Well, I think, we, especially if you're on, sort of I guess the ideological divide where, you're really, you have faith behind you and you're going to be running into some headwinds in the school systems, and that's just a fact. That's how the systems have developed. And the Supreme Court case law is very clear, and it goes back for a long time. We have enumerated rights in the Constitution, and then there are rights that aren't enumerated, but they're just assumed to be very, very important rights.
Right.
And so one of the rights that it's not enumerated, but that the Supreme Court has consistently found, is that the upbringing of children is a fundamental constitutional right. It's not enumerated, but everybody understands that it is. And so to the extent that you make the best decisions about, hey, I've got a kid who has, had previous trauma, maybe they're a foster child or an adopted child who's undergone some terrible things, and I need to be the ones making the right decision. It shouldn't be the school because they don't know the situation. They don't know what we've dealt with. They don't know what happens at home. And so they need to have a right, that fundamental right to control the upbringing, the education of their child without concern that, hey, they're going to get reported to, Department of Human Services to have wellness checks on these kids just because
Right.
they're making decisions. And I think the key on these situations, my hope at least, is that if there's open dialogue and communication with the schools, telling them, why you've come to these decisions, I think, a lot of it can be avoided. But, you have to really be on the defensive and the lookout and be thinking, well, how could they weaponize this to, put my family under a microscope, to, make me feel like I have to check behind me everywhere I go, that I'm being watched. So it's an important line. Now, of course, we need to have laws that protect kids too, because not all parents, are created the same, and there are parents, unfortunately, that aren't doing right by their kids, and so there is a line to walk, and we just have to make sure that the government is adhering to that line.
Yeah, and I think that and my heart goes out to parents, especially where both parents are working, and there's this sort of presumption, well, that my child is at school, and so they're safe and protected, and I think largely that's true. But there's a lot of things that work against that as well. And so it really comes down to the notion that one of our framers said, is that vigilance is the price of liberty, and we have to be able to stand up for what's happening at schools, and parents have rights. Parents have rights to address the problems that are happening, not just with their child, but what's happening in the school as a whole. And so, and we know that Colorado has been at the center of several parental rights battles, have they not?
Well, we have had in this bill, this legislative session, there was actually a bill to give preference in family court to parents who accepted their child's transgender identity or gender expression. And fortunately, that portion of the bill got struck down. There were some remaining portions which were somewhat troubling. that got through. For example, the records are sealed for a former name of a minor who changed their main name because of, they, transitioned from one gender to another. Their old name, or their dead name, as they like to call it,
Yeah.
is kept out of the judicial record. It's a sealed record for the minor. So
Right.
that did pass, but the portion of the bill that gave preference for custody in family court decisions to the parent who accepts the child's transgender identity, that did get struck down over, and it does show that if there's enough opposition, um, and parents are great. When it comes to their kids, they're going to come to Denver, and they are going to be ticked off. The mama bears were there in force, and they got that
And
shut down pretty quickly.
that is so excellent. And this is a perfect example of why, regardless of the trouble this causes kids, there's more trouble if they don't do anything. Here, if this passes, then basically, as they wanted it to pass, boy, the parents lose big time in their rights to raise their children according to their values. So, hooray for mama bears. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing that a lot of times they have a certain orthodoxy they're trying to get through at all costs, and they don't really think about the consequences. And the
Right.
consequences of a bill like that is, maybe you're a desperate parent and you just want custody no matter what. You don't care what you have to do. Well, now you might encourage that
Yeah.
child to, express, the alternate gender so that they can now say, hey, I support him, so I get custody. So it sort of incentivizes perversely, um, you know, taking certain actions that aren't always in the best interest of your child when you're in that situation that maybe you're not seeing clearly. So I think that was a good one to stop.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Absolutely.
yeah,
And issue on that issue, this issue of the transgender status, so-called transgender, because nobody, not one person on the face of the earth is transgender. Nobody. It never changed. The chromosomes are either XX or XY. Period. And there's no scientific dispute even to that fact. What they're basically saying is, well, this is your identity. No, your identity has to conform with reality. If not, then it is, as has been held for a very long time by science, it's a malformation. And so this will cause injury to children. There's no, again, the identity is biology.
agreed. And unfortunately, the medical communities has sort of gotten itself turned up in knots on this as well.
Right.
And so, that's what this orthodoxy will go out and seek the professional community, and there are willing participants who, will say absolutely, a man can have a baby, and, a woman
Yeah.
can impregnate somebody else. It's really crazy. Even this bill for the abortion drugs that we talked about earlier has a section in there. The language says, transgender men need to have the right to have an abortion.
Right.
And you think, wait a minute,
Unbelievable.
men do not get abortions.
That's
Uh,
right.
so yeah, it's pretty it's it's pretty remarkable. The other
Well,
thing I wanted to hit on, Michael, with regard to the parental rights is parents don't always realize, but they do have a right to look at the curriculum and what their kids are being
that's
taught in
right.
school.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, Joel, as always, we're running out of time here, so I just want to say thank you so much for being on the wall in Colorado there, and watching out for what's happening. And folks, give Joel a call. He gets lonely sometimes, so give him a call if you have questions. Thank you so much, Joel. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on, Michael. Enjoyed it.
Absolutely. So, folks, We thank you for joining us here and for our time of discussion so that you can be involved. Reach out to pji.org if you need help or have questions. We're here to help without charge. So I just wish you Godspeed as you stand up for your rights so that no one, and I mean no one, takes them away because they're from God. Take on the day, folks. God bless you.
We would love the opportunity to continue to serve you. Just visit pji.org and click the Legal Insider button to sign up for our email newsletter. At PJI, we help individual employees, employers, business owners, pastors, students, citizens of every stripe through our practical resources, counsel, representation, and defense, all free of charge at pji.org. PJI is an island of stability and assurance in our ever-churning sea of legal and societal chaos. We are here for you.
So folks, just remember, it's our God-given freedoms we're talking about. Now, let's choose to keep them. I'm Brad Dacus, president of the Pacific Justice Institute. Let's continue the fight for your freedoms.